die, you dog! On your feet! Get them going!
Hello. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever the case may be. Welcome to Cross Examinations. I'm your host, Mike S. Miller, not a past priest, rabbi, teacher, scholar, theologian, blah, 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 blah. All that stuff. I'm just a guy on the internet talking to you. Why you're here, I have no idea. But welcome. Hello, Tina and Justin and Corpse Grinder. What's up, guys? Welcome. Let me turn this chat on as I begin. Oh, you just started. I did. And I'm only a shy 2 minutes late. Very nice. I know I was totally ready earlier, but Twitter or X. We're having a little discussion about this guy. I know we'll get into the other news, but this video, there's a video going around about a protective dad tells daughter's Muslim boyfriend to stop seeing her, and so we're having a little back and forth discussion about it on a Twitter DM group, which is kind of funny. What do you guys think about that? Because one of the things the guy says, it's my house, my rules. She's only 19. She lives under my roof. Therefore, she lives under my rules. And I'm 1,000% on board with that. It was I remember when my oldest son turned 18, and I was telling him something. I can't remember what I was telling him. He's like, I'm an adult now, and I just laughed at him. I'm like, you're an adult. I'm like, you don't pay rent. You live in my house under my rule. I'm like, look, Elijah, if you want to be an adult, you move out. You get your own apartment. You pay your own bills. You pay for your own food. You pay for your own car insurance. You pay for your own gas. And you'll be an adult, and I'll treat you like one. Till then, you're a kid, and you live under my rules. He's like, yep. And that's how it is, right? You're here on at this point, you're here on a scholarship. And once you turn 18, I have every right in the world to kick you right out of my house. Go be an adult. Go ahead. And I'll be honest with you, if this was we didn't live in a place where it was so bloody expensive to get started, I might just kick my kids out when they turn 18. That was always the plan, right? They used to tell me since they were little, I was like, I'm kicking you out when you turn 18. And then I didn't. But it was just because how crazy expensive it is, right? My house, my rules. Exactly. My house, my rules. I'm the king in this castle. At least the dad is smart enough to understand what Islam really is. Good for him. I know. And of course, it's like the Muslim dude's like, he's like, well, it's her decision. She's an adult. And he's like, let me explain something to you. It's not her decision because she lives under my roof and under my rules. So you, as a man, need to respect me as her father, as a man, and just bug out of here because she's not going out with you anymore. And it's just, I mean, I can play it, but it's like 3 minutes long, so I don't really want to. But yeah, it's absolutely, yeah, it makes sense to me. The rules, right? 100%. It's hard as a father because look, we're talking about it there because like if this chick is dating a Muslim, it's because dad didn't raise her to understand why that's a problem, right? Unequally yoked. Now in Islam, dating outside of your religion is encouraged for men and beheaded for women. So let's just say that's a hell of a discouragement for women to date outside of Islam. But the reason it's okay for men, and you see this all the time, Muslim men will always date Christian women. And why are they doing that? Because it's a double whammy. First of all, if you are a Muslim man and you marry a Christian woman, the children are Muslim, right? It's not encouraged for, they don't even have to convert them. If you marry a Christian woman as a Muslim, your children are Muslim, and they will be raised as Muslim, or you're going to have a problem. And so what they're doing is it's a double header. It's first of all you're making more Muslim children, and you're taking a Christian breeding woman off of the playing board. So it's a population control, population domination jihad. It is a jihad. Muslim men going after Christian women is part of jihad. This is not a joke. This is very real. And that father should stick to his guns and not let his daughter date or marry a Muslim man, because then all of his grandchildren will be little jihadis too. Sorry. Basically, the whole religion of Islam is just to live in constant pleasure, but only for the man. Not just live the eternal afterlife. Women are in Islam. Women are essentially just sex slaves in the afterlife. Why this is motivation for women, I don't know. But that's paradise, because it's paradise for the men. It's sex slavery for the women in paradise. That's the paradise of Islam. Yep. Really, really. Where do you think those 72 virgins come from? And scarily, since Muhammad was a pedophile, how old do you think those 72 virgins are? I really did not know that. I guess women are treated like and probably considered just a piece of their property. What does their book say? Women are to be plowed, I believe it says. Something like that. If you want to delve into this topic, there's guys like God Logic and Sam Shamoon who they go into this, and they debate Muslims. I mean, that's their whole ministry, is debating Muslims essentially. So Tanner says, I heard a Muslim say Christianity is a religion made for men by men, and I laughed. Muslims. Heaven was described by one Muslim as dying for the cause and then coming back and doing it over and over and over and over again. Yeah, it's a death cult. I hate to say this. I have Muslim friends, but thankfully they're very, very, I wouldn't even say they're just moderate. They're like, yeah, I'm Muslim. Yeah, I was raised Muslim and blah, blah, blah. I do whatever. Eating pork. I'm just kidding. They don't eat pork. But yeah, they don't. I don't think a lot of Muslims. It's funny because they'll like memorize the Quran and somehow still not know what it says. It's like they just have words in their head, but they're not contemplating what those words mean. And it is a death cult because they'll say it. We love death more than you love life, and that is why we'll win. That's like a Muslim incantation, or I don't know how you phrase it, but it's scary. We love death more than you love life. That's why they're perfectly willing to use children as human shields, because I've seen video of Muslim mothers celebrating the death of their martyred sons, because in Islam, okay, there's a couple of things. The only guaranteed entry into paradise in Islam is dying as a martyr in jihad. That's why they can so easily get people to strap suicide vests on and walk into pizzerias in Israel, right? Back before the wall. And that's why they're so willing to stand in front of munitions to get blown up. And that's why they're so willing to use their children as human shields. Because, oh, look, my child, he's going to die as a martyr. Not only, okay, here's the second way you're going to, I know I said it's the only way, but there's a caveat to the martyr. The martyr who is saved by the first drop of his blood in martyrdom. The first drop of the martyr's blood is, I think, the way it's phrased. He also gets 70 of his relatives into paradise for that fee. So when a mother has their son martyred, or strap on that suicide vest, go walk into that pub in Israel and blow up some Jews, dying as a martyr. I, as the mother of that suicide bomber, get to go to paradise for free and be a sex slave for eternity. Oops, forgot about that part, huh? The devil was a murderer from the beginning. Truth. Dustin says, this is just because they are only in the first stage of jihad, which is acting like they are your friends, just like Muhammad did in the Quran. And then the second he got power, they started subjugating. Right. Just looking at the facts objectively, Muhammad was a terrorist, which is why 97% of the world's attacks are done by you know whom. Right. Terrorists and leftists, which brings us to this morning's news, doesn't it? So, some retarded leftist in an attempt to what? Fight for illegal aliens? Murdered 3 illegal aliens. And it's not funny. It's a little ironic. And it does show how freaking retarded Antifa and the left are. They thought that an ICE van would just be full of ICE agents, like it's a troop carrier. I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh. This is just so ironic to me. This idiot must have thought that an ICE van was like full of ICE agents, like some sort of a stormtrooper carrier. Maybe he was thinking of Star Wars. It's like, oh, that shuttle will be full of ICE agents, which will be deployed in order to take that, whatever. It was an ICE van, so it was full of what? Illegal aliens. And so he shot up the van, murdering 3 illegal aliens. Maybe that's why he offed himself. Maybe he like they opened the van. I don't know how this happened because I haven't seen any video. But maybe like after they were shot, they shot up the van. They opened the van and like a bunch of illegals poured out, covered in the blood of their friends, and then the guy's like, I don't know. This is a horrible, another terrorist attack by leftists. This has been one flipping hell of a month, hasn't it? Oh my gosh, it's gonna get worse. I hate to. I prognosticated this before. I mean, it's gonna get worse. It's gonna get worse. You guys can pray for it to get better. I'm just telling you, as not a great student of history, but if you're any kind of student of history whatsoever, you will recognize this is the beginning. This is more of these idiots who are being praised, although I'm not so sure how well this guy's going to be praised after murdering illegal immigrants. But the Charlie Kirk shooter. These people are being praised by the highest powers. And somebody made the point, I think on Timble yesterday, that there's a far right. I hate to categorize them as far right, but they lump in white nationalists, even though white nationalists are not terribly conservative. They lump in white nationalists as the far right. Someone made the point that there is no far left because no one on the left is condemning. I mean, and you have to be like milquetoast middle to be condemning. And honestly, then the left is just going to push you over to the right. But if you're condemning Charlie Kirk's shooter, you're condemning murder against conservatives, then you're clearly not left enough for the left, because we've got people in Congress who have been voted into power by the left still like mocking Charlie Kirk. Just like, how are these people allowed to be in Congress? I have no idea. But there is no fringe left because they're supported by the left. Every conservative I know condemns any left-wing or any I even hate to say far right, any white supremacist, any Nazis, anything like that. I don't call them right-wing, but I know the public nomenclature is to call them far right. But the normal right, the MAGA right, we all condemn all of that. But that doesn't happen on the left. See, I consider myself far right. I'm as far right as you can get. I want small government. I want tiny government. I want the government the hell out of my life. See, big government left, small government right. To me, the farthest right you can get is anarchy. No government. Right? That's the left-right paradigm to me. No government, totalitarianism. I don't see right-wing totalitarianism because it's no government. You can't have no government totalitarianism. Communism, fascism, socialism, until you get to the impossibility standard. Here's the thing. The impossibility standard of socialism is like, there's no government in socialism. So it kind of wraps around, which doesn't make any sense because you can't really have no government in socialism. Because no, then the power goes back to the people, and then you can't have all the power in the people's hands, because then the people will just go back to being not the power of the people's hands, the means of production. It's not the means of governing, right? They say that, like, well, you get to a certain point, then you don't, quote unquote, need government anymore. Hogwash. Hogwash, I say. Hogwash. All right, let me go back up. The devil was, in fact, a murderer from the beginning. Hello, Bruno. Tina says, I'm going to put a video in the Discord about Muslim sexuality for you guys to watch later. There's some creepy stuff. I know this is like jumping back to the previous topic. They will grappa little boys because and say that they're still virgins. That's why they do goats too. They'll say they're still virgins, graping little boys, because they're not having sex with women. And in order to not be a virgin, you have to have sex with a woman. So they can say that, oh yeah, I'm still a virgin up until blah, 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 blah. Huh? Most likely off himself because he's a coward. Yes, they're all cowards. You keep grouping people into wide categories. What made them left? You keep pretending? Are you still pretending like these guys aren't left wing? They shot. Corpse Grinder, what side is anti-ICE? Tell me again. What side is anti-ICE? What side is anti-free speech? What side is anti-Charlie Kirk? Tell me again. What color is the sky in your world, dude? I don't have the Discord. Somebody drop the link, please. Corpse Grinder, I thought the left didn't like guns and wanted to take them away, but now these guns-wielding extremists are still left somehow. Well, the last guy stole his grandfather's gun, so it wasn't his gun. This guy, I don't know where the gun came from, but it was a Mauser. It was like a World War II rifle. So if I had to guess, this dude probably stole his rifle from his grandfather too. Me too, Mike. All right. Stuff like that is covered in the video I put on the Discord. Obama's even mentioned it. What's up with religion and little boys? No, that's Islam. Also, I mean, I don't want to throw the entire Catholic religion under the bus, but in Islam, that's a very common practice in Islamic countries. So it's not like just Islamic leadership. Although I did see a video I wish I had never seen. It was an imam. I wish that was not in my head. But in Catholicism, it's pretty much like the priests. And I'm not going to say it was all the priests. It wasn't all the priests. But the fact that the Catholic Church covered it up, that was worse than the priests. Not just covered it up. They danced with the lemoned pedophile priests. Just like, you guys familiar with the Dance of the Lemons in from Waiting for Superman, right? In Waiting for Superman, there was this realization that it's so impossible. It's damn near impossible to fire a public school teacher because of the power of the school unions, right? So what they would do is, if a teacher was, I don't know, caught banging a student or abusing someone or whatever kind of negative thing it was, to the point where that school district was like, get this freaking guy out of here, but they can't fire him, they would move him to another school district, maybe even another state, so that he could do the same thing there. And then until he got enough complaints, and they just moved these horrible, horrible teachers around the country until the point where nobody wanted them anymore. And then I think it was in New Jersey. I gotta watch that movie again. I think it was in New Jersey. There's this one school that has this big room where they put all the lemons. So these guys still got paid. They were still officially teachers, but they couldn't work with any students because they were such horrible pieces of crap human beings. And so they would go to work, 8 o'clock in the morning, just like all the other teachers. They would go into this room, and they had to stay in that room until 3:30 when school got out. And it was basically, they were in detention all day long as a career, and they got paid their full teacher's salary, even if they were, doesn't matter. That's how hard it is to fire teachers. So you should watch Waiting for Superman. It's a very good documentary on why the public school system in America sucks bunghole. Has anyone ever seen about the Dancing Boys of Afghanistan? No. Most people aren't on teams and have very different views on many topics. And yet you're very much having a team position about this. How do you know they're on the left? You don't want them to be on the left, Corpse Grinder, because you're on the left. And you know it. Thoughts on Stephen Miller's hateful speech, aka Pee Wee German? Hateful? You mean at the funeral? I'll be honest, that was my least. I wasn't a fan of Stephen Miller's speech at that funeral. Be honest with ya. Yeah. It's common in churches too, Mike. You don't have to pretend it was no big deal. What do you mean by common? And also, I don't pretend like it was no big deal. I thought it was disgusting that the Catholic Church did that. And here's the thing: if it happens in any church I've ever heard of, even if it doesn't have to be that even, any kind of indiscretion on that level, or even just adultery, I don't know Catholic. I don't know anything about Orthodox, so I couldn't tell you what. But in the Protestant churches in America, we kick them out. I remember what this one pastor, and it was really, really kind of upsetting because he had really great teaching. Trying to remember his name, but he was just caught. Like he was in his hot tub with his wife and another lady, and a friend of his from the church. And this was a guy. He was on the radio. He was, his really good teaching, which is what makes it worse. I was a fan. And a friend of his came over. He wasn't answering the door, so we went to the backyard. He could hear them in the backyard, so we went in the backyard, and he saw them. And the lady and his wife were topless in the hot tub. That's all they caught. That's all they saw. And that guy lost his entire ministry. So I don't know about other churches, but generally speaking, in the churches I'm familiar with and the Protestant churches that I'm not even going to say this is Protestantism, but in the churches that I'm familiar with, we don't put up with none of that crap. We'd probably, if a pastor got caught like diddling a kid, not only would we call the authorities, we might just take him out to the middle of the ocean and drop him with a millstone. I mean, we do not put up with that. So that's what makes what the Catholic Church did, in my opinion, even more disgusting. Studies show the most dangerous place to be for children is at the home or at school. Predator-wise, they're actually safer in a church, but who cares about statistics? Pretty much, they protect them. Corp says, I have left and right views. I don't have a team. Well, then you do recognize that these people that are murdering all these people are leftists. Right? You recognize that. If you don't have a team, you should be able to recognize that. You keep grouping people into categories. What's up with religion and little boys? Cool. Yeah. Just a hint of irony. I won't even call it hypocrisy. I'll just call it irony. I know stats are also high for SA when there's a non-biological father in a household. That's Dr. Phil. Yeah, that's why divorce. That's another reason for divorce bad. Divorce bad. You probably are already aware of most of it, but you will appreciate that video I dropped into this word. Yeah, I know, right? It's the worst part about that is that, I mean, I was a fan. He was a great teacher. He had such great lessons. And yeah, he was just done. We just wouldn't matter. I mean, Miles McPherson, even he hasn't done anything. But he's like this huge mega pastor church guy here in San Diego. I used to go to his church for like 15 years. If he got caught doing something like that, he'd be done. His mega church would collapse, or someone else would have to take over. It would just. Real Christians don't put up with that crap. If you're in a church where you'll put up with that, or your congregation will put up with that, GTFO, man. That is no. That is a no. Nope. Negative. No. Nothing like that. Nope. Um. Aw, cute little birdies outside. It's so funny how fast squishy evangelicals will very quickly become theonomists in those instances, but then still call those positions heterodox legalistic problems. Could you speak English, buddy? Trying to throw your big brain around. You're a rabbit, for Pete's sake. Your brain is the size of a peanut. Tylenol. I wrote some things I wanted to talk about. Tylenol. It now makes sense to me why it looked like the vaccines, right? Because the vaccines when you're injecting a kid with 3 different diseases, what are they going to end up with? Very often, or too often, they're going to end up with fevers. What is the one safe fever reducer they would give to kids? Tylenol, right? Cubic says, another shooting happened again. What is going on? It's just getting started, Cubics. I'm telling you. I am telling you. That's two shootings in 2 weeks. This one was a leftist who decided to try to shoot up a bunch of ICE officers, but they were too stupid to realize that ICE vans aren't filled with officers. They're filled with illegal immigrants. So actually, he murdered 3 people that he was apparently trying to defend because he's a leftist and therefore retarded. That's the long and the short of that one. And what will it be next? We're actually, you know what? We're only on Wednesday. I would put money down on something else happening this week by Friday. Maybe by Saturday. I would put money on something else happening this week because I think it's going to ramp up. I think it's going to go faster. Morning, Melissa. My analogy of the situation is stay strapped or get clapped. Wow. There's nothing those poor illegal immigrants could have done because they had no chance. Cubics, there's no off-ramp. The rhetoric is only getting worse. Yeah, and it's I watched that Jimmy Kimmel apology. Yeah, it was exactly as predicted, right? A little bit of crocodile tears, a little bit of and then right back to it. Right back to it. I'm surprised he didn't just come out in a Nazi uniform and call Trump a Nazi again. Manchurian candidate activation begin. Well, here's the sad part. Rather than a Manchurian candidate, what we've done is we've Manchurianed the education system to churn out generations of left-wing indoctrinated people. I don't know if I talked about it or on the show a couple days ago. I was watching this video with this young woman who was coming out of being an SJW. And she was raised in a Christian household. She was homeschooled. She went to church. She was all the right things. But I think it's when they sent her to college, she had a new group of friends. And the indoctrination doesn't just come from professors, right? It comes from peer pressure. So you're at a school, all your friends are crazy little socialists. Your professor is echoing what they're saying. The news media is echoing what they're saying. She says it was super hard to maintain her beliefs that were to the contrary of everything her peer group, her professor, and the media were drilling you on. I did talk about it. Okay, thanks, Tina. Look, if your peer group is only saying one thing, that's what you're going to believe, ultimately. So, but here's the thing: you have to be educated about what the other side of the argument is, so that you can understand whether or not your arguments are rational. And I think in too many cases, that's not the case. I think that's why apologetics is so important, because you're not just learning one side of the argument, you're learning the arguments for both sides, right? And you're understanding why these arguments don't hold up and these arguments do. And then I mean, this is the way I did it. If I heard an argument from even people who agree with me, right, my side, so to speak, and it didn't hold water in my head, I would not use that argument. I would never use an argument that I knew had any sort of fallacious legs on it. But anyways, the market didn't let them kill free speech. It was a win, even though Jimmy isn't funny. He's not funny. That's the funny part about all this. How has he had this show for so long? You know who he took his show from? Bill Maher. When Bill Maher got canceled 20 years ago, and Bill Maher said it was like to the day that he got canceled. I loved Politically Incorrect. I watched that show all the time because you know me, I love debate shows. So Politically Incorrect for me was like two conservatives, two liberals, plus Bill Maher, who was the liberal referee. But at least there were two conservatives giving their side, and then they would just sit down and they would debate, dialogue. I loved that. That was my favorite, listening to both sides of the argument. And they canceled him over some 9/11 joke. I think was it a 9/11 joke? Well, what was the joke? I can't remember. But they canceled him, and Jimmy Kimmel took his spot. And he's at it ever since. But Jimmy's not funny. His comedy on the Man Show, which I didn't even watch, was shock value. That shock value is not comedy. I mean, it's not like it can be funny, but it's not like you can't convert shock value into stand-up comedy. It's just not the same thing. So I don't know. The market didn't let them kill free speech. No, but they should fire that guy just for being an idiot. I don't know. Does anybody even watch him anymore? I swear I said it. I think I said it last time. That 20% of people are still on terrestrial TV, or 20% of households, and I think that's the only way he gets any views is terrestrial household. Actually, let me go look something up real quick. How many views does Jimmy Kimmel average on YouTube of his free stream show? Taking too long. Sometimes Grok takes way too long. Oh, I should have just opened up my Audible Grok. Okay, come on. Today. You did talk about it, Mike. I was just making a joke about Manchurian Candidate. I know, but it's funny how it's like the Manchurian education system. That's what we have now. I got some mango habanero jerky, and I don't think I can eat this. I got a piece yesterday that had no taste and just burned. Fun. Okay, not most recent monologues. Go back a month and give me the average. It's unfortunate, but some teenagers are so desperate to feel accepted and will go along with anything just about. Yeah, we are tribal, and we want to get along with our tribe. I think unless you're a disagreeable person by nature, like myself, it's hard for most people to just break away. And I don't, you know, I think that's why it's fun to be disagreeable, I guess. Um, Monologues drive the majority of his long-form engagement. Reports indicate regular monologues averaged 3 million views each, aligning with pre-suspension trends. All right. How about Bill Maher? Let's see how Bill Maher does against Jimmy Kimmel. What's up, Tree Goblin? Jimmy's as funny as a root canal, and his ratings reflect that. Craig Ferguson was funny. You know, I haven't watched a lot of late night in a long time. Typical 1.5 to 2 million views for his monologues. Wow, how is Jimmy Kimmel? Oh, you know why? Because YouTube prioritizes certain, like CNN, probably ABC, CBS, all those things. Remember when YouTube was just all, what's the word? Like, if people liked it, they would put it on the front page. It was based on popularity, right? But for 6-7 years now, I think, they made some deal with these corporate overloads where they put the corporate stuff on the front page, the CNNs, the ABCs, the CBSs, and all that kind of stuff. Corpse Grinder says he was on the Man Show. He hates everything he used to be. It's weird. So in other words, he doesn't have any actual beliefs, or he doesn't actually stand for anything. He's just whatever's gonna make him money. Politically Incorrect on ABC was canceled in 2002 after he made controversial remarks following the 9/11 attacks, calling hijackers not cowardly while questioning the U.S.'s foreign policy. Funny that. He wasn't funny on the Man Show either. He's always been a slimy POS. I didn't watch it. I'd like to apologize for James Corden on behalf of England. Is it Corden? Corden? Who's James Corden? I know that name. He has been trained to be with the current thing, and that's why he has the show. He is a perfect mouthpiece for propaganda. But a perfect mouthpiece for propaganda would actually be funny and entertaining. Right? Another bang bang? Yes. Okay. One more time. Another retarded leftist. It's so hard for me to say this without, because of the irony. Was apparently it's funny because the interesting correlation is that Gavin Newsom this morning apparently said some crap against ICE, and then later this moron goes out there and shoots up an ICE van. Kirby, you know what ICE vans are filled with, right? Because they're not stormtrooper transports where they're filled with ICE agents. Usually you have maybe a couple ICE agents in the front. Possible you might have one in the back. I don't even know if they bother doing that. So they're filled with illegal immigrants when they're full. And so this idiot shoots into an ICE van, murders 3 innocent illegal aliens. And then I'm hoping that he realized how stupid he was, and that's why he offed himself. But I'm not sure. Craig got absolutely robbed. Craig Ferguson was the best. I loved Craig Ferguson. Wow. A lot of people loving Craig Ferguson. 4:44 a.m. Oh, you poor little baby. Watching horror movies. Da, 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 da. He is reaffirming old people in their beliefs. It's all the nursing homes running his show. That's what I'm saying. It's terrestrial TV. Right? So they only get ABC, CBS. They don't even get CNN. Terrestrial TV doesn't even get CNN. ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox. What else is terrestrial TV covered by these days? I don't even know. I haven't had a terrestrial TV since the 80s. That's why I was so shocked to find out that 20%, and for those of you who don't know what terrestrial TV it is it's having an antenna. It's having an antenna that you collect the radio waves or the whatever frequency it is, and then it goes into your TV so you can watch television. I haven't had an antenna TV since the 80s. Cable doesn't count as terrestrial TV. I looked this up because it's like, why does ABC still have a broadcaster's license? Broadcast TV licenses are only for terrestrial TV. And I'm like, who the heck still uses terrestrial TV? Apparently 20% of households in America. That was a huge shock to me. Huge shock. James Corden had one of those late night talk shows in Americatown. He interviewed celebrities in a car. Huh. Dang, so a bunch of detainees got hit. 3 people got hit. 2 were killed instantly or pretty quickly, and then 1 apparently survived for a little bit, but in my latest report I heard he was dead, or he or she. So 3 dead. In possibly the dumbest oh my gosh, this will go down in history as the dumbest attack on police officers or the like ever. Is that I'm sorry, I cannot, I don't want to laugh. 3 innocent people are dead. It's the stupidity of it that makes me laugh, because this idiot shoots the people he's probably thinks he's defending, because he's a freaking, well, I was going to say brain dead, but now his brain is dead. So comedy works because it says something silly and something true. Propaganda can't be funny because of Brooklyn says, are we now going to say it was people against ICE that shot the ICE van like it was those lefties that killed Kirk? No, I'm sure, Brooklyn Lou, I'm sure it was people that just loved ICE that shot the ICE van. Is that really how your brain works? Is that seriously how your brain works? 2 antennas is extraterrestrial. Really? Yes, really? Mike, well, you know how those people are notorious about not doing their research. You can laugh about it. I mean, that's not even research. How? That's just retarded. That's just literally, that dude had 82 IQ. I don't know how. It was not people, Mike. It was a person. Well, if you add him with the other person who murdered Charlie Kirk last week, it was people, isn't it, Brooklyn Lou? And trust me, it won't be the last. The left is very good at violence. You know what's so funny? Do you know how many acts of violence occurred during George Floyd and the Antifa riots? But like when you look up the ADL or all these places that track political violence, They don't add any of the violent attacks during George Floyd and Antifa. It's hard even to get AI to admit it. Because you remember, they're like, well, you can't really say it was left wing. It was more opportunistic violence. And I'm like, you realize that Antifa, a very, very political, anti-conservative political army of terrorists, frankly, literally attacked the Portland Federal Building every night with Molotov cocktails, fireworks, rocks, everything they could get their grubby little Antifa hands on for over 100 nights straight. And there were dozens to hundreds of them every night. None of that they concluded, or they bothered adding to the till of political violence. That's how skewed the ratings are for this political violence stuff. Bricks, thank you. Mike, did you kill George Floyd? No, right? So why say the left killed Charlie? Because George Floyd killed George Floyd. I just looked up what his autopsy actually says. Here's the facts. He had enough fentanyl in his system to kill him. He had pre-existing heart condition that was bad enough to kill him. The neck restraint used by Derek Chauvin had, first of all, it was in the police training that is a acceptable restraint to use on a subject, and that neck restraint had never, ever, not once in the history of mankind killed someone. So could Derek Chauvin had even thought for a fleeting moment in his head that putting his knee on George Floyd's back would kill him? No. Oh, on top of that, the autopsy shows that zero, no asphyxiation occurred. So the whole I can't breathe thing, which he was saying in the car because he was overdosing on fentanyl, by the way, that had nothing to do with him dying. He had a cardiac arrest. He had a freaking heart attack because of the stress of the situation, and the combination of the stress of the situation and the overdose on fentanyl. And I think he was also on meth. Was he not on meth and fentanyl? Was that right? So, no, I did not kill George Floyd. George Floyd killed George Floyd. And then George Floyd, left-wing George Floyd supporters murdered police officers. Why say the left killed Charlie? Because it was left-wing Antifa, gay, transsexual loving leftist who had been indoctrinated by other leftists and leftist professors and all that fun stuff. So yes, the ideology of the left, which includes, by the way, violent overthrow of right-wing governments. Look at history. And that is why, Brooklyn Lou, I say the left killed Charlie, because I do know better, apparently, than you, who is incapable of understanding the facts in front of your face. People are such robots. I know. Opportunistic for who, Grok? I know. Oh, that we can't count those. Those are just opportunistic. Okay. That was tragic. Drugs are a blight. Yeah. George Floyd was also a criminal who put a loaded weapon against the belly against the stomach of a pregnant woman, I think while he and his friends were robbing her apartment. And that's the hero of the left, who they actively, not who they wanted to, who they burned down cities and communities and cars and buildings and people's only source of food for half a year. How long was it? It was crazy. Like a year. George Floyd died of a critical case of fatherless behavior syndrome. Yes. Oh, he was a druggie, so Mike, to be involved with Floyd death, Mike would be Tony Montana. Don't you remember people on the left saying it was the right that killed George Floyd? Do you not recall? Right, because they were full of crap. But I'm not. The right didn't. George Floyd killed George Floyd, and the left blamed it on the right because they're retarded. I'm disconnected from the world, especially druggies and dragons. It was Chauvin who killed George Floyd, and it was Tyler Robinson who killed Charlie. Okay. The situation killed George Floyd. If he hadn't been high on fentanyl, he wouldn't have died. If he hadn't been arrested, maybe he wouldn't have died. But he was already saying he couldn't breathe in the car, which seems to indicate he might have already been in the middle of a heart attack. So Chauvin might not have saved his life, but it's entirely probable from just my understanding of the events and the autopsy that I would give it a 80%. Floyd would have died in that car because he was already in the car, grasping his chest, saying he couldn't breathe. Now, if he had said, I think I'm having a heart attack, maybe they could have rushed him to the hospital, right? But he's just saying, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. I know, Lou. This is the problem. In a very, very biased jury, he was convicted of killing George Floyd, second-degree homicide, which means no intent, right? But the coroner's report, the autopsy, showed he had a level of fentanyl, a lethal level of fentanyl in his system, and he had a bad heart. So just use your own common sense. Forget all of it. I mean, forget the jury and all that stuff, because you know juries can be biased. They said OJ was innocent. Okay, do you think OJ was innocent? Come on, be realistic. Oh, okay. So you think OJ was innocent, Brooklyn Lou? Is that right? Is that right? I'll wait for you to answer this one. Let's test your IQ here. I think it's been more than 14 seconds, Lou. Lou, it's been more than 14 seconds. I'm pretty sure you had time to answer this question. Was OJ innocent? Brooklyn Lou, Mr. So Mike, you do not accept verdicts? Hello? I think OJ was guilty. Okay then, Mr. Do you not accept verdicts? Then be consistent. Okay? It was a biased jury, just like the jury against Trump was. And because of that, they found Chauvin guilty of something that the facts just do not show he was guilty on. He had heart problems. He had enough fentanyl to OD to kill him. And then he got arrested. And the thing that Chauvin did has never, ever, 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 ever in the history of planet Earth and mankind killed someone. Can you use your brain for a second and come to a rational conclusion that that verdict was wrong, just like the OJ verdict? Stop thinking with your biased little brain and start thinking like a human. George's actions killed George. That's right. The right's rhetoric didn't kill George Floyd either. It's apples and oranges. That's right. Second degree still has intent. Not from what I looked up. And also, again, I just pointed out, if you can show me one other case where putting your knee on someone's back killed them, then you have maybe an argument for intent. Maybe. Right? I did accept the OJ verdict. You literally just said that you believed OJ was guilty. Therefore, you saying I did accept the OJ verdict is literally what we call lying, Lou. I don't, and I just can't. And you know what? We're just going to end it there. I can't. Dustin Cross, depends on if your knee weighs 600 pounds. Yeah, you'd have to be an elephant putting your knee on someone in order to kill them. What was Chauvin? Maybe 180, 200 pounds tops. And George Floyd was like a foot taller than him and probably had a good 80 to 100 pounds on him. So just putting your knee, your little 180-pound knee, on a giant like Floyd, again, given that that move has never killed anyone in the history of mankind, how could you then say with a straight face there was any intent to kill her? Seriously. I don't care how left-wing you are. Can you honestly claim that? And if you can, I'm sorry, you're an idiot. All right, that's it, everybody. Thanks for being here. God bless you all. You want to continue the conversation, head on over to the Discord. Otherwise, I'll see you on the next exciting episode. Cross-examinations.